Before we dive into our conversation with Gough from Beernuts Productions, I want to talk to you about a very important thing. It is festival season, baby. We're here about it. You know, in Wisconsin, there's Summerfest. There's a lot of other great festivals going on. In Chicago, Lollapalooza, Riot Fest, an opportunity to go see a lot of great bands, long hours of dancing, partying. Of course, along with that comes with hot temperatures. It's here, and if you're planning for it, efficient hydration is essential, and Liquid IV has you covered while you prep before and power through the headliner and recover after the weekend. Liquid IV hydrates 2 times faster than water alone with 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks. I love their flavors. I love the convenient packaging. You know, you can throw one in your pocket, throw one in your bag, and then when you're at the festival seeing the show, get yourself a bottle of water, dump that stuff in, shake it up, drink it, and you are set as far as hydration. I've been to festivals before where you're just sweating buckets, and boy, oh boy, could I've used some Liquid IV. They got some sea berry, which is a new flavor, strawberry lemonade, a new flavor, watermelon, strawberry, passion fruit, guava, and a whole lot more. 1 stick of Liquid IV in 16 ounces hydrates you 2 times faster and more efficiently. It is non-GMO and free from gluten, dairy, and soy. So get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use code DUDESWITHBREWS at checkout. That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code DUDESWITHBREWS at liquidiv.com. Now let's kick it to our pals at Beernuts Productions.
This is a short one like me. Dudes with Brews on the Porch presents Michael Brews.
Dude. Craft brews and casual conversations. Oh, I messed up the fucking thing, the tagline. I've been so caught up. Beernuts Productions is here. Gough is here. The long time guest, the most guestiest of guests, has returned with an all new film.
Casual brews and casual conversations.
Something like that. I haven't drank in a while because I've been battling this cough for a while, and I did have an old fashioned yesterday, which is like a Midwestern in America. It's a bourbon or brandy drink with some cherries, bitters, all this other kind of stuff in it.
I will tell you an interesting fact about beer, Drew.
Yeah.
That when I did my tour of the Guinness distillery in Dublin, apparently in the early 1900s, if a pregnant woman was feeling ill and had iron deficiency, the doctor would prescribe a pint of Guinness every night before she went to bed. So perhaps you need a pint of Guinness.
I did have Guinness in my fridge not that long ago. They are gone though, but yeah, I haven't been drinking any beer because every time I took a sip of that old fashioned yesterday, I would start coughing again. So I've really been just I've wanted one, but I'm like, I just can't handle it because it's already bad enough. But you're here to talk about your new film. Which is I've had the opportunity to watch it. It was a good one. It's a little bit of a lengthier one. It's called Mr. Eligible. Let's talk about it.
Yes. Well, firstly, I should also say thank you for having me back on the podcast. It's always fun to chat with you, Drew. And yes, indeed, we've got a brand new film out. 42 minutes. It's a marathon.
Dang.
It's Mr. Eligible, which is essentially I'm making fun of reality TV, in particular dating shows like The Bachelor and that sort of stuff. So it's essentially just ripping that genre apart in short.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you definitely hit the nail on the head. I am not really one to watch those shows, but I've definitely have seen them. And I noticed that you kind of like hit on all the people that you expect to see in those types of situations. Are they pretty prevalent in Australia as they are in America?
Well, yes, absolutely. So there's a couple of things. Firstly, I'm exactly the same with you. I would prefer to eat rusty razor blades than sit through an episode of The Bachelor or Love Island or any of those shows, to be quite honest. Which is why I decided that they needed to be mocked because the people that go on them deserve to be mocked. So that's what I did. So I made fun. I tried to think of, because to be quite honest, I've never actually sat through an episode. I mean, I've seen little clips here and there, or obviously the advertisements that you come across when you're watching another program. But I've never actually sat through an entire episode. I think I would kill myself. So I based everything that I know was based off like little clips that I may have seen, or just things I've heard people say, or TV advertisements. So and yes, so I did what I thought was the right thing to do. Was every stereotype I could imagine that appears in those shows, I shoehorned in. So we got 16 lovely ladies, and of course the Mr. Eligible, which is myself, and then of course we have a host and also a producer that pops in from time to time trying to cause mischief. But yeah, so it was mainly just brought about through the want to make fun of that genre, desperately wanting to make fun of that genre.
I think you did a good job at it. And, I don't have a lot of experience in the world of like dating online, but I kind of like was thinking about, I wonder if this is what people go through on Tinder. You know what I mean? Like, is it kind of like, is Tinder and online dating kind of similar to that of The Bachelor in that process and the people you meet?
Well, I honestly can't. I've never ever. I don't even have the app on my phone. I wouldn't know anything about Tinder, to be quite honest. I've never decided, because again, I tend to think a lot like you. Actually, I think it would be similar. I can't imagine the kind of crazy people you would meet, and so I think avoiding it is probably the best plan of attack. So yes, I can only assume. And I think, like you, I think it would be reasonably similar to a very bad episode of The Bachelor. You'd see somebody's profile and you'd think, oh, they look all right, and they seem quite well adjusted and normal. And then you arrange to meet them, and quite the opposite would take place.
Yeah, and that definitely can happen in any dating situation. I was on Tinder for like a day. And then I was like, I have to, I think I matched with one person, and I was like, come on, I think I could match with more than one person. And then I was like, this is just too artificial. I can't do it. So then I got rid of it, and then I got drunk, and then I texted my future wife, and here I am.
And the rest is history.
Yes, it worked out. So
the moral to the story is drink beer, get drunk, and text random women, and you'll be married within 6 months.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I knew her previously. She was a friend of mine, but so whatever method you got to use, I guess that's the way to do it. But was it difficult writing for each individual person in this film? I mean, you had, like you said, like 16 or 19 people on the cast. So yes. What was that process like?
Well, the writing of it was actually the easiest part of it, to be honest, because, I mean, once you decide on what stereotypes you want to go with, it's pretty straightforward to go with it. And you're mocking a genre that's pretty, let's be honest, it's pretty straightforward to mock. So that the writing process was easy. It was like casting it was really difficult because a lot of the usual actors, as you would have noticed, Drew, there's a lot of new actors in this particular piece. Because a lot of the actors I've previously used, lots of them have moved away, like gone to Sydney or Melbourne to do theatre or film, or one's over in LA and one's in Japan doing Tokyo Disney. So, I mean, there's all sorts. So there was a few that had already been booked on stuff. So
Jeez.
I had to search long and hard to find the cast that I was happy with. And again, like... as you would know, with my style of comedy, it's not for everybody, and there's a lot of people weren't approving of the humor that was involved. So obviously they didn't audition because they didn't like it. So which is totally fair enough. So it did take a while to get the cast together, and then obviously there was lots of rehearsals involved because again, there's a lot of group scenes in this one, which is not something I've really done before. So that took a lot of organising and getting everybody right and knowing what they needed to do and when they needed to do it and all that sort of stuff.
Was that something you wanted to challenge yourself with, or was it just is part of the process for this film?
Yeah, it's more part of it's just what this film required. So once it was written, it's the same with any film I do really. Once it's written and done, then I need to decide, okay, well, how am I going to go about making this happen. So yeah, and then once I saw what was required, I was like, okay, I'm going to need to really rehearse these actors, and I'm going to have some group rehearsals as well, which is not something I usually do. I usually prefer one-on-one rehearsals with actors, but I did one-on-one rehearsals with everybody and then group rehearsals. So yeah, it was all it was very different, but that's just what was required with the actual piece itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I felt like when was the last one? So before Mr. Eligible, what was the last one that was released?
Couples therapy.
That's right, couples therapy. I felt like it had been a little bit like. So did the rehearsal process kind of impact like the length of start to finish?
Yeah, no, you're quite right. So yeah, because couples therapy came out at the end of November, and now we're in June. So usually I would have had one out, around March, April sort of time. But there was this project was actually a lot more time consuming in pre-production for many, many reasons. I had trouble getting the location that I was happy with. I actually had to replace during the process. I had to replace 4 different actors for different reasons, which obviously set everything back. I had a few other little technical difficulties at the very start of the process. So yeah, it was without question, it has been the most challenging film I've ever done for a whole heap of reasons. But on the flip side, I think I'm the most happiest with this film. I really think it's like super funny, and I'm really, really happy with how it turned out. So it was worth the effort, because there was a few times there where I thought that this wasn't actually going to happen, because it was there was a few big spanners in the works, which was not fun.
Yeah, and you said before, like some people didn't necessarily want to audition because they didn't like the humor or whatever it was. Is it difficult working with newer people on that to try to like get the concept of what you're trying to do to them, or do most of the people that
Yes.
were on it? Oh, it is pretty hard.
Yeah, yeah, it can be, because so out of the 18 actors I had, only 6 I'd worked with previous. So it's very nervous for me when I've got 12 brand new actors, because these are people, obviously I've auditioned them, so I know they're good. And I've met them briefly at the audition. So I've had a bit of a chat with them to get a vibe for what sort of a person they are. But you never just know how they're going to be until you're right in the guts of it all. You know what I mean? So it is very nerve-wracking to find new people in that regard, because you just don't know what you're going to get. So yeah, that's why I still like. I mean, and like I say, I did have to replace 4 actors for various reasons. So that wasn't fun, and then you've got to re-audition and all that sort of stuff. So it did make it, and then yeah, with the rehearsals again, I got to sort of figure out what the best way is to work with each individual actor, because everybody's different, and I respect that. I mean, some people need an arm over the shoulder and a bit of a "you can do this, come on man, you're my buddy," and need a bit of love, and other people like to be yelled at. So like there was one of the actors on here is ex-military, and she was all about, like, the more aggressive I was towards her, the better the performance was. She was all about it. She actually said, and I quote, when she got the role, she said to me, "Don't worry, Gough, I'm going to act the shit out of this." So, that's just the kind of girl she is. And yeah, she absolutely acted the shit out of it. She was fantastic. So, yeah, super happy. But yeah, you just never know what you're going to get when you're hiring new people. And I guess that would be the same for any industry.
Yeah, for sure, and I would agree. Most everyone that was on the project seemed to really commit to the role and did a good job, and the jokes landed. They were funny. I was chuckling the first 2 minutes of the gosh darn thing. So that was yeah, it was enjoyable. It was funny, and my favorite part was how the send offs went.
Oh yes.
I
The different eliminations.
Yeah, the various the way of the elimination was very unique in this situation, and I was just like, you know what, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the future.
Well, when they say elimination, they actually mean elimination. So that's you got to say what you mean in this world. It's important to be clear. So That's what's happening. So I enjoyed that as well.
So with the release of this film, Mr. Eligible, and you being the eligible, what's your love life like right now, Gough?
What's my love life? Well, let's just say it's resembling an African drought desert situation.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it gets rainy
So,
there sometimes.
so if there's any ladies out there that are beer swilling, fine looking ladies, hit me up. I suppose is the moral to the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you ever consider joining one of these shows as a gag, or just kind of seeing how it
Well,
goes?
Well, that's kind of where the idea of this came from. So years and years and years ago, my old production man Simon, he used to hassle me all the time. He's like, "You should go on The Bachelor. It'd be hilarious." Because we also thought that it would be a fun social experiment. Because I mean, the women on those shows are so vain and shallow
Yeah.
and superficial that the second they realised it was a dude with a disability, they'd be like, "Fuck this! I want nothing to do with this. I'm tapping out." So it would be an interesting social experiment, as well as he just thought it would be good for me to get some action. So, yes, so that's sort of where like the seed of it was born years and years and years ago. When Simon kept telling me that I needed to go on the Bachelor or some show like that. But to answer your question, there is not a snowflake's chance in hell that I would ever consider appearing on one of those shows, for a raft of reasons. So, yes.
I think there was like one show. It was like called either Joe Millionaire or For Love or Money or something like that. Whereas two dudes, it was like Bachelor style.
There was Joe Millionaire, because I remember watching that, because I don't watch many, but I like the concept. Are you the one where the dude was actually like a construction worker on 18,000 a year, and they told the girls that he was like some kind of a prince that was worth like hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And then when it got down to the final two, they're like, surprise! And the girls were not happy.
Yeah, and then clearly they're in it for all the wrong reasons then, and they should get they should get eliminated. I'm surprised these shows still exist, and you would have to think by now people know that these are written, that there's writers, that they're a lot of the times the order of the reaction shots are not the order that they were filmed in. It's just all kind of, heck, we have this bank of this person looking sad, so now we're going to throw this in here and all that kind of stuff. It's weird that people get so gung ho, especially in America. Like I don't know what it is. I can only speak for America because that's the only place I've ever been in. But it's like these people are just. It's like the ones that get obsessed about the royal family. I don't understand it.
No, well, you raise a valid point. People do take it very seriously. A good friend of mine, I used to rent off her, actually. So she's a psychologist, and she loves watching all those shows, but she watches it from a psychology point of view. Because how they act is how they act. That part isn't staged. That's because, again, I can tell you, one of the makeup artists that worked on my film, she actually worked on the last season of The Bachelor as a makeup artist.
Oh, crazy.
But she was doing the male host makeup. And she said to me that if they had have put her on to do some of the girls, she would have quit because their behavior was just so atrocious that she was like, I wouldn't have been able to handle that. So I was doing the male host makeup and I was in charge of him, and that was totally fine because he was a nice guy. But she said I couldn't have so the girls actually act that batshit crazy. That part is for real. But you are correct. It is very contrived and staged and all of that sort of stuff. There's no doubt. And people do get very passionate about it. And I mean, I know there is a podcast here in Australia that is devoted to the Australian version of The Bachelor. These 2 or 3 women sit around and discuss every single episode. And it's like a proper podcast that people listen to, all about the Australian series of The Bachelor. It's crazy.
That is yeah, for a show that's not worth watching, I definitely don't want to hear about it. That's interesting, but yeah, it was a good flick, man. I liked it. I enjoyed it. And I thought the length was great. I liked the variety of people and the personalities, and it flowed well. It was good stuff.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you. So everybody listening, Drew's given it the big thumbs up. So
That's
that
right.
means that everybody needs to download a copy of Mr. Eligible from beernutsproductions.com. That's beernutsproductions.com. Just thought I'd get the plug in early, Drew.
Oh, that's good. Shifting it over to the world of beer a little bit. So my son, before he went to bed tonight, I said that I was doing this interview, and then the first thing he said was, "What do you say, cranky mate," or something like that, because I said, "Oh, I'm talking to somebody in Australia," and I don't know that I think that was just a Steve Irwin thing. I don't know, but he also said, he said something that Australians call beer schooner. Is that true?
Okay, so firstly, he is correct. We say crikey is a thing, and secondly, schooner is a glass. So
Okay.
you can order a beer in a pint glass, which I think is 610 mil, a schooner, which is 590 mil, or a pot, which I think is 390 mil. So I always go for the pint because why wouldn't you? But yeah, some places will only sell beer by the schooner. So it's slightly, I think it's 20 mil less than a pint. So it's a not a type of beer. It's the glass that the beer will come in.
Yeah, in the world of America, a pint is 16 ounces. I had
16 ounces. Yeah. So I'm not too sure, but what that would equate to. But a pint is a pint. So
Right.
so that's the same all the world. So it's just literally about 3 mouthfuls less than a pint is a schooner.
Interesting. Yeah, usually in America, or at least in Wisconsin, you can get like we call them like snifters, and they're like 4 ounces. I have no idea how many mLs that would be, but they're smaller. And then usually some fancy beers get served in like a 10-ounce glass. Usually the more boozier, like bourbon barrel stouts
Right.
or something like that. And then you have the pints, and then of course you have like the big fuckers that they get bigger. So
The jugs.
almost, yeah, growlers. That's essentially equivalent to what a gallon would be, which I don't know what that means in Australia. America's weird. I just know a pint of beer is a pound of beer. Call them pounders.
Yeah, well, yeah. So with us, it's a pot, a schooner, a pint, and then some places will have jugs, which is your equivalent would be a pitcher. Is a jug is a pitcher.
Oh, sure.
So
Yeah.
so yeah. So that's though there's a bar in South Bank, which isn't far from where I live, called the Ship Inn, and you could go there and you could order. It was It was called a tower, and it was a 2 liter tower of beer, which equivalent would have been maybe 2.5 jugs. But I think the government stopped them from serving it. So, but yeah, you used to be able to, and it came with a little tap on it as well. So you used to be able to order a tower of beer, and it had a tap at the bottom, and you could pour your own beers. So you'd go there, and there'd be a bunch of towers on someone's table, and they were having a good time.
Yeah, and then the government's got to swoop in, and the man's always trying to bring you down.
That's it, man. That's it. I don't like it at all. I don't like it. But yeah. So the towers were gone reasonably quickly. They didn't last too long. It's a shame. There was also, when I was a young man, I remember on my 18th birthday, you used to be able to, again, the government stopped people from doing it, but you used to be able to get fish bowls, which was essentially you'd have spirits. So essentially it was like just a fish bowl, and it was full of either rum and Coke or vodka and Coke or bourbon and Coke. So, and it was like they were strong. Like it wasn't just one shot of alcohol. Like It was a lot of shots and ice in the fish bowl with the Coke and stuff. And used to sit around, and on your 18th birthday at some bars, you used to get a free fish bowl if you showed your ID and it was your 18th birthday. You get a free fish bowl. So I had a few of them on my 18th birthday, but they quickly became the way of the dinosaur.
I've never had a fishbowl, but they are still alive and kicking in the world of the USA. And usually it's like a shared drink. At least that's what it is. So which is kind of gross if you think about it. But yeah, the way they do it here, it's probably more like rum or vodka, and it's like fancy tropical mixers in the fishbowl.
Oh yeah, no, we're straight up here. It was rum and Coke. So, and you're quite right. You'd have like 3 or 4 straws, and you'd all just be sitting around with the straws just sucking him down. So yeah, that was pretty much how it went. But yeah, that soon died out pretty quickly because, as you rightly point out, the man is always wanting to get in the way of fun.
Bastards. Bastards.
But that's why see Beernuts Productions, the man. I'm independent. No one can touch me.
That's right.
So it's that's why I do my own thing. Is for that exact reason. No one can ever say to me that I have to do a certain thing because I'm in charge of me. So that's how it rolls.
And you're also Mr. Eligible because no one can touch you. Hey-o.
Well, that's very, very true. Very true. I am curious. I am curious, Drew. After watching the film, was there a particular character, young lady, who you would have? I mean, we won't spoil the ending by saying who I chose, but is there? Who would you have chosen if you were in charge of? If you were the Mr. Eligible out of those 16 delightful ladies, was there one that stood out to you that you would pick?
I don't remember all their names. It would have either been, the sex addict for sure, or I like the translator, the deaf translator. She seems really nice.
She was very cool. So obviously she didn't know how to do any sign language, so we had to teach her a few things. The deaf lady was actually deaf in real life,
oh, cool.
But Tegan, who played the interpreter, it was the first time working with her, and I'd absolutely happily work with her again. She was a delight. She was so cooperative because obviously she had no experience with the deaf community at all, and so this was a completely new experience for her. And she's just finished acting school, so she was sort of fresh out, and so it was one of her first big gigs to get, and all of this sort of. So but she was so great. I rehearsed with her a lot, and she was super cooperative and just really into it and wanted to do a great job. And yeah, she was wonderful to work with, Tegan. She was really great. So I would say that was a very good choice on your part, Drew.
And then, of course, I was kind of hoping you'd pick me just by watching. You know what I mean? Like everyone else had this connection, and I felt like I had the connection too. I was like, well, maybe we'll break the fourth wall and be like, Drew, I choose you. Yes.
That's well, I can't because Anne Hathaway is your Mr. Eligible for Anne Hathaway. So it would be. Wouldn't want to steal you away.
Rachel McAdams has kind of creeped into my life a little bit.
Well, it's taken this long for you to realize that Rachel McAdams is a thing?
No, I've known she's a thing. I was just watching Dave recently. I don't know if you've seen that show, but it's pretty good. But she's in a couple episodes.
Okay. I quite like her. She's a very, she's a lovely lady and all, but she's a very good actress. She's done some really nice work that I'm just trying to think. She was in About Time, I think, she was very, very good. And she's been in a few really good films, actually.
Yeah. I know she was in Wedding Crashers, which is probably not her, most world-renowned film. Of course, The Notebook. I've never seen The Notebook, and I kind of pride myself on that.
Well, it's not really our demographic, though.
No.
I tell you what, I did see, which did make me laugh a lot, was Conan O'Brien a few years ago now. Yeah. Conan O'Brien, is it Ryan Reynolds or Ryan Gosling in that film? It's one of the
Gosling's
Ryans.
in that one, but I think it was with Ryan Reynolds that he did that with.
Did the parody.
Yes.
And it's very, very funny. Really, really funny. So that tickled me. So I like that a lot. The Conan O'Brien parody of it was very nice work.
Yeah, Conan's one of my heroes. I love that guy. I wish I could be him.
I like Conan a lot.
Yeah, unfortunately he doesn't have a show. I think he's got something coming out on now whatever they call Max now instead of HBO Max. They have some show of his coming out soon. So I'd be interested to watch that. But I do miss that guy. Did they have
Yes.
Do they have like Australian chat shows a lot?
No, our TV situation is atrocious. One of the reasons, in all seriousness, I do things independently is because of that exact reason. Australian television is in the toilet. I mean, we buy most of our programs from overseas, unless it's a reality show, which costs very little to do. There's no Australian Tonight shows. There's no Australian chat shows. We've got crappy morning shows like you guys have crappy morning shows. But there's no actual sort of entertainment kind of shows so if you were, for example, a band, an Australian band, and you got a new album out, and you wanted to perform it on television, there is literally nowhere, unless you go on to one of the crappy morning shows, there is literally, which isn't your demographic, but unless you do that, there is literally nowhere for you to showcase your work. So, and like, I mean, if I was to go to a TV channel with Mr. Eligible, for example, and say, you know, I understand in America, like your NBCs and that would probably say no to it, but, you know, you've got your cables and all that sort of stuff over there. But if I was to go to the TV channels here and say, here's Mr. Eligible, how about we air this? They'd have some kind of heart failure. There's no way they would even consider having that on for a raft of reasons. I mean, not just because it's sort of an M-rated mature comedy, but it's also like, I mean, it's Australian content, so they don't like that. They don't like, it's just, it's disgraceful, actually, the Australian television scene. So that's why, again, if any good Australian actors or directors, they go overseas, they go over to Hollywood, they go to New York, they go to London, you know, because that's where they get work, because they can't get work in their own country. So yeah, the Australian entertainment scene is not in a good place, which is one of the reasons, like I say, why I do what I do, because if I didn't do it independently, there would be nowhere for me to do it. You know, it's my only option, really.
Yeah, and it's good that they, I mean, it's good that they do that, because, like you said, a bunch of people that you have worked with now are doing like those things. And, you know, unfortunately, yes, they did move, and now you have to find some new actors. But you're the guy. You're the one that gave them probably their first shots, and now they're going to be big celebrities. And when they're up on the stage receiving their Academy Award, they'll say, "Thank you, gough, for putting me as a sex crazed person on Mr. Eligible."
Well, they better, or there'll be trouble. Let me tell you, there'll be consequences if they don't. But in all seriousness, you're quite right. So I know Maya Nib, for example, who was in a couple of my films. She now lives in Vancouver, and she's doing a lot of Netflix work up in Vancouver. I've got, there's a couple of actors, Matilda Simmons, who's been in quite a few of my films. She's now in Melbourne doing theatre, so she's got a theatre run. I've got another actor who I've worked with a few times, Asabi. She's now doing a tour of America doing Hairspray. She's in the musical Hairspray. So
that's crazy.
I mean, yeah, if you want to be, unfortunately, Australia just doesn't support its own. It's a real shame. We're not. There's I know we spoke about it briefly last time in the Australian rules football that I follow.
Mm-hmm.
There's an American guy called Mason Cox, and he plays for one of the teams over here. And he made a comment once, and he said, because somebody was interviewing him, and he said something, and he goes, "Oh, that's right, patriotism. It's not a thing over here." And he's right. We don't do patriotism. I mean, like, people think that, you know, he's being sometimes conceited or big-headed, and he's not. It's just it's the American way to be proud of what you do and be proud of your country and be proud of who you are and all that sort of stuff. That's how Americans are. I lived over there, so I get the attitude. But Australians, we're quite the opposite. We love to tear people down, and it's quite a shame. We got a weird view on a few things over here. It's very, very strange how we see things.
Yeah, that is, and that was a question I was thinking of today. I was like, I never see any like crazy rogue Australian people that are like, do they have the big trucks with the flags that say Australia like we do in America? You know, in America, rednecks in particular really like to put fake testicles off their truck. Their truck has balls, they like to say, and it's a pretty specific type of person, and one that would, like, you know, you have this political side that tends to not like any sort of gay or LGBTQ rights, but yet they're under their truck holding a fabricated pair of testicles and hanging them on there.
You know, there is a certain irony to that. There's no doubt about it. I like that a lot. But yeah, no, we don't do anything like that. And it's a real shame, you know. I think that's why, like, in all seriousness, when I'm working with actors and meet actors for the first time and they read my scripts, they're sort of taken aback because I'm sort of not the usual as to what they usually see in this country. I'm not the standard kind of guy. I'm a little bit out there by Australian standards. So, it's we're a very conservative kind of country as it happens, which is a bit of a shame. But and so I'm a little bit on the outside looking in, so to speak. So people are always taken aback a little bit when they first read one of my scripts or they first see one of my films. They not 100% sure how to take me, but they get used to me eventually. So that's all that matters, I suppose.
Absolutely, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Zoom is telling us we only have a handful of minutes left. So let's plug all things Beernuts Productions. Where can they find the film? Where can they see updates? Where can they get all the info?
Absolutely. So, of course, we're all over social media. So just type in Beernuts Productions into your social media and we will come up. And then, of course, if you want to watch any of our 28 films, this is our 28th film. If you want to watch any of our films or listen to our podcast or any of our audio downloads, it's all at beernutsproductions.com. That's the only place you can get it, is beernutsproductions.com.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you coming back on, and I look forward to talking to you after the next film.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Drew. Really appreciate your time.